The Someone You Should Know podcast with Rick Anthony, sponsored by Summarize. Repurpose podcast, webinars, and interviews for social media, websites, and email with the help of AI, all thanks to the help of Summarize. Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. For Valentine's this past February, I took my wife Leslie out for dinner and a double bill tribute act at the Hobart Art Theater. On the bill was Electric Duke, a tribute to David Bowie, and Strangelove, the Depeche Mode Experience. And I have to say, both of us were just absolutely blown away. That evening, I met today's podcast guest. He does an incredible David Bowie, but he's also a gifted musician as Oscar Wilde in the Depeche Mode Experience. He's Julian Shah-Taylor. How you doing, bud?
I'm well, thank you.
Listen, if you ever need an endorsement for either of those two acts, please let me know, because I was totally captivated. It was just totally immersed in it. I didn't realize how many Depeche Mode songs I really loved, because it's like it was hit after hit after hit. You guys did a great job, and the Bowie Experience, I could have heard another hour of that as well too. So it was just so well done.
Well, thank you.
Very good.
We love our work. It's not work; it's just the power to charm.
Yeah, absolutely. When did your love affair with music begin?
So I was raised by my grandmother. Pretty much, she taught me piano. She was a thwarted music teacher and poured all of her love of music into me. My grandmother, she played multiple instruments. She sang beautifully. She played the piano. She played the flute and clarinet, I believe. And my mother was a clarinetist and an opera singer. So I had no choice, really. And then when I was 7, because my grandmother was sort of older, my grandfather was older, they put me in boarding school. I got a choral scholarship to Durham Cathedral Choir School, which is the basis for Hogwarts in the Harry Potter books.
Is that right? Is that right?
They filmed a lot of it there. Mm-hmm.
Son of a gun. So are you... You're a wizard, Julian. You definitely are a wizard on the keys. I know that much. You did a great job on that.
I'm a wizard, Harry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was literally, they based, I believe, I could be mistaken on this, but I believe she actually based the structure of Hogwarts with the house system and all that sort of stuff on my school.
That is incredible. That is incredible. What was the name of the school one more time?
The system of boarding school in England is, I left home at 7 and I never returned, basically. So, and I was raised, with Latin and all that stuff. And in the cathedral every day singing, I played piano, violin, church organ, trumpet. I, was steeped in music like a good tea.
There you go. Very good. Now you went on to get a philosophy degree at York University. And when did your love affair with David Bowie's music actually chime in with you? When did he actually strike a chord with you?
David Bowie. So I wasn't really a fan for a long time. So I heard Let's Dance was the first song I heard by him, and I didn't like it. It seemed very much like just a standard blues song. And I'm classically trained on a lot of different instruments, which means that I listen for melody and I listen for structure and I listen for counterpoint and I listen for all those things. I mean, I studied music properly up to the age of 18. And I heard that Let's Dance, I wasn't really into it. So I saw this guy with blonde hair, Let's Dance, not into it. And a friend of mine who I met in Nottingham used to wear a negligee. He was, I guess you could say gender fluid, but he was straight. He just had very unusual fashion senses. And so we used to go out on the town. I was kind of a goth, listening to The Cure at the time, and he took me back to his house one time and he put on the album Lodger. Mm-hmm. And I was very, very intrigued by the song Yassassin, which is not a song that a lot of people come to Bowie through, but I listened to that and I thought, oh, this is actually quite good. And then he said, oh, you're not really a Bowie fan. I was like, well, I'm intrigued now. So then he played me Low, mm-hmm. and I was hooked. I loved it. And from Low, Scary Monsters, I really came into Bowie at that point. And then I heard the song Loving the Alien, which as a classical musician, you sort of, there are things in that song which tickle your classical interests as well, because the time changes, the weird chord structures, the disjointed melody that works the second time you heard it, but the first time you heard it, your brain just sort of does a flip. So, but at that point, I was impressed with Bowie, and then it grew from there. Most people say, "Oh yeah, Ziggy." I heard Ziggy. Wasn't for me at all. Ziggy's not my record. It's low. It's Scary Monsters, and it's actually Station to Station. Those are the 3 records.
Very good. Very good. How long have you been portraying David in the Electric Duke?
I've been doing the Bowie tribute for about 10 years.
10 years. Okay.
Yeah. I started off, I was running a charity down in Watts for kids, and I needed to buy instruments because I was bringing my instruments with me. It's a music thing where we'd sit with the kids and we'd teach them how to write songs, and we'd, sing with them and show them how to play the drums, which they loved, of course, and guitar. So I would tune my guitar to open tuning and give it to a kid, and they'd write a little song with me. Some very talented kids. And I just realized my instruments were getting bashed to shit. So I wanted to buy new instruments. And a lot of my friends, I said, look, let's have a charity concert. And I have some famous friends that I've worked with who, very well known in the new wave and pop scene in England. Mm-hmm. And I wanted them to come and donate money. So they all said, "Oh, why don't you should play some Bowie songs." And so I, got a onesie made and did the makeup and got the wig, and it was such a success. And everybody was just like, "This is what you were born to do." So I've been doing it ever since, and people really love it. It's kind of weird because, I'm an original artist, and people always said my music sounded like Bowie.
It does.
Whether that be some of the timbre of my voice or the influences I've absorbed by accident in the songwriting structures and things like that. So it kind of made sense. And then the joy that brings to people, especially since his passing, is palpable. I could not walk away from that, even if I wanted to, just because people love it so much. I'm not me in that context. I am, as you said before, channeling Bowie, I guess, and just giving people that back because they can't see Bowie now. So I want to give them something that's, that at least serves that, which means we don't play, with my band. I mean, I have a band called The Band That Fell to Earth, where we do, it's a 6-piece based in LA, as well as Electric Duke, which is the 3-piece you've seen. And we do all the songs. Like we've done a Station to Station album show, we've done a Ziggy album show, we've covered songs that people would never really see otherwise. Because we're not about, of course it's a little bit about making money, but it's about serving the legacy and serving the memory as much as it is about the money. Because Bowie was not a greatest hits guy. He was a deep cuts, brilliant artist. He was the best, greatest music artist. He and Prince and Kate Bush, I'd say, they're the holy trinity of brilliant genius that's my lifetime in music. There's a guy I've seen recently called Ren, who I think is spectacularly good. He's the new iteration of that brilliant genius. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, those are the 3. I mean, you've got the Beatles, who I adore. You got John, who is my, avatar of brilliance. I love John's songwriting. I love John, but he isn't a musical genius the same way Bowie, Kate Bush, and Prince were, who could take every corner and every facet of music and make it their own.
Wow. That's well done. Did you get a chance to meet David before he passed?
I did. I met him one time. I was a special events manager for Virgin Records in London. And he was doing a signing at our store, which was the Piccadilly store. And he moved because he wasn't anticipating such a huge outpouring of love, because it was the Hours album he was launching. Mm-hmm. And he'd been away in the Never Never for a while. I think he just finished doing Tin Machine and decided to come back and do an album to please his fans. And the fans were pleased. So everybody wanted to come out. So our store was too small. So I went to the Tottenham Court Road store to meet him, met him briefly. If he had been at my store, I would have been his liaison. So that's kind of a bummer. but yes, I did. That was the one time I met him.
Very cool.
He signed a couple of things. He was very charming. And I've met most of my idols in my musical career.
Wonderful.
And Bowie, there are two who are powerful, radiant people. Bowie, powerful and radiant, like something about him. He knew he was Bowie, and there was no doubting it whatsoever. And he was also bestowing Bowie upon me. I mean, he was being Bowie for me, and that was a very respectful thing to do. The other one is Courtney Love, who I worked with briefly, who is the opposite. She is the black star to Bowie's bright light, if you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. She was kind of the heavy weight of the universe in one person. And she's very interesting as well. But I got something very light from Bowie. I feel like he peeled off a flake of his light, as Leonard Cohen might say.
Very good. I have something I want to share with you. One of my guests say that they were an opening act at CBGB's in New York, and they just finished with their set. And someone had approached him and said, someone from the crowd wants to meet you. And they said, oh, okay, let's finish this thing up. It happened to be David Bowie. And my friend said, he asked, how much does your opening act actually make tonight as far as that goes? He goes, well, we were just playing for free tonight. He says, that's not the case. He pulled out his wallet and gave him $900 and said, keep working on your set. He was just a huge supporter of musicians. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful, caring guy.
He was. I mean, he launched people. I mean, he would put his, as I say, he would take off flakes of his light. He launched Lou Reed. He launched Iggy Pop. He launched TV on the radio to a degree. Like all these, Arcade Fire benefited from his reflected light. Mm-hmm. And then he would, he would not work with Coldplay. He said it's a bit rubbish. Not that Coldplay needed it, but he had that discerning, sensitivity and understood what it takes. I mean, it takes a lot. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm not going to reveal my age, but it takes a lot to break through. And you can come through a lot of hard times and hard lessons in the world of music where you're just going, okay, well, I mean, as Morrissey said, you just haven't earned it yet, baby, it seems relentless. And Bowie, Bowie took 7 or 8 years to get going at the beginning. Right. Yes. He did 2 novelty singles. I mean, he was a fame chasing guy. Like he knew what it takes. He went on TV, about his long hair, complaining about how people would tease him about his long hair. He knew what it took to be a star. And it sounds really strange because, we look back on Bowie's career as being this brilliant, great artist who changed the game. But it took him a long time to get there. So he knew, and he respected anybody that gave it that go. Like him and the 2 people I've met who had really inspired me at that era of my life, which was in London, when in my 20s, were him and David Byrne. I played a show with David Byrne from Talking Heads, and he was just incredibly encouraging. And you could just tell they've gone through it. They know where you are, and they know that you've got hunger, and they recognize it in you. And so they'll give you all they can. Like it's a palpable energy transfer, I think.
Very much so. And he's always inventing himself through his entire career. He was always reinventing himself. And it always seemed to be a success. He always managed to strike the chord. And it's just something that I truly enjoyed about watching him, from his Ziggy days to his days of Young Americans to his later stuff, even at the end. We're going to, of course, talk more about Electric Duke and Strangelove, but I want to talk about you and your project, the singularity that you've got going on. The first song we're going to feature from the CD that you gave me that February night was Elysium, was the name of the CD. End of the Line. I understand this song has received a Grammy nomination. Is that correct?
Well, the End of the Line remix was on the Grammy ballot. Mm-hmm. And then the album Elysium was on the Grammy ballot for Best Alternative Album of the Year. And as you can see, I got number 4 New Wave podcast of 2022, just below Tears for Fears, Midnight Oil, and Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott, whoever that is.
Awesome.
But yeah, it was, that album has been the album of my career so far, just in some ways because it's a cohesive body of work. End of the Line is a song that, you know, it's had its share of people's favorites. It seems to be, and it's maybe the most Bowie influenced guitar solo I've ever done, like the end guitar solo of the song.
Very good, very good. Now, I had a hard time deciding on which tracks to play because everything on the album was great. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Everything that was on that album was great, so it was hard for me to nail it down. But that was one I definitely had to play because I've played it over and over and over again. It is just one of those songs that you're going to want to play over and over again. Please enjoy this song. It's End of the Line from Julian Shah-Taylor right now on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
I shut it down to extricate the odd, no self-control. I watch you break the universe apart, no self-control. And you say everything's for a reason. I watch it happen to you. Sliding away, I watch you sliding away. Keep my head down to save me from the storm, no self-control. I find the candles and light the corridor, no self-control. You tell me that everything's in the details. Oh, if it happens at all, I can never do nothing but evil. I just can't do nothing at all. It's the end of the line. Find our way. It's the end of the line, yeah. And we're sliding away. It's the end of the line, yeah. And we never did find our way. It's the end of the line, yeah. And we're sliding away. I watch you sliding away.
That's my current favorite track, End of the Line, from today's Someone You Should Know podcast guest, Julian Shah-Taylor. More greats. Someone give me a Grammy ballot, please, someone. I want to check those both off, okay? More great music from Julian coming up in a bit, but I want to say thanks so much for tuning in to the Someone You Should Know podcast. We can be heard on the World Wide Web at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast.com. If you go there, you're going to see our recent news, our archive of more than 170 episodes, and a whole lot more. If you happen to be visiting, we invite you to leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing, okay? Now, according to Buzzsprout, the service that shares us to all the different streaming platforms, so very blessed. Thank you so much. We've been heard in over 2,200 cities in 90 countries around the world. I want to salute a couple. New additions, Aurora, Colorado, Springfield, Massachusetts, and 2 in your home country of the United Kingdom. We have one in Halstead in Essex County, and also Harrow on the Hill in London. The Someone You Should Know podcast, heard wherever quality streaming audio is available. Hi, it's Rick again for Summarize. Summarize repurposes your content from audio and video into engaging, shareable social posts, email content, summaries, quotes, and more. Hey, it's hard work to create high-quality content from podcasts and video content. Summarize gives you multiple types of content to support your marketing channels, from social media posts and email newsletters to show summaries and a whole lot more. As a matter of fact, if you go there today, you can upload up to 60 minutes for free and find out why I like it so much. Go to summarize.com to learn more. That's SUMMARAIZE.com. Thanks for listening, and now back to our podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We're speaking with the uber-talented Julian Shah-Taylor. And I got to ask you, what is the BOWIE Files all about, Julian?
So BOWIE Files is a project that I've embarked upon and have not yet finished the first episode, because basically I know and work with the next album that I'm releasing has multiple of Bowie's old collaborators on. And I realized, but as you probably have surmised, Bowie is a shining beacon in my life. So a lot of people who work with him have been attracted to me and have worked with me. So I thought to myself, well, I'm working with all these people who knew Bowie or went on tour with him or have anecdotes about him. So I should interview them. They're in my studio recording with me. So I interviewed Mike Score from Flock of Seagulls. I interviewed Michael Aston from Gene Loves Jezebel. I interviewed Nick Launay, who's an Uber producer, produced Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Kate Bush, Nick Cave for 20 albums or something. I interviewed Carmine Rojas, who's the bass player for Bowie. I've got a bunch of other interviews on the slate, but I want it to be a really, really high quality product. So I've edited documentaries. I do video editing too. So I put together the first interview, which is Nick Launay's interview, which Nick is an old friend of mine, and the interview is 2.5 hours long. So I wanted to get most of it in, but I wanted it to be funny. So I'm putting in like little clips of, him with various people. His parents are in there, and little quips about them and stuff that I've put in. And it's taken me 17 hours to do 20 minutes. So it's on a bit of a hiatus at the moment. I have 5 interviews in the can, as I said. So in the can. It will happen. It will happen at some point. But I either need to get funding for it, or I need a lot of spare time, which is something I do not have. Yeah,
it's a passion of love type thing. It's just, you got to do it when you've got the time to do it. We're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about Strange Love, the Depeche Mode experience. You have the role of emanating Alan Wilder. You're Oscar Wilder for the band. Who else is in the band?
So we have Leo Lugansky, who is the singer, a young gentleman from Volgograd in the ex-Soviet Republic. He is now extant in New York City, and he's absolutely magnificent. One of the best frontmen you'll ever see. I mean, you've seen him.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
He does Dave Gahan obviously very well, but his own music is phenomenal too. We're working on a song currently that I really like. Just the greatest singer he can do, from Placebo to Chino from Deftones. I mean, he's a really, really talented kid. Also, we have Brent Meyer, who runs the project. It's his baby. He started it something like 15 years ago and has been going ever since and grown it. I mean, I don't know whether you've been in a band, but it's very, very difficult to grow a band. It's easy to get out and play shows, but to get to the point we're at, where we are constantly touring and constantly upping our, income, it's phenomenal. I've used the word phenomenal way too many times. I'm very impressed with Brent's abilities in that respect, and his singing is fantastic. He does so much work behind the scenes, His guitar playing is excellent. He plays with me in the Bowie band too, as you've seen.
Yeah.
He also sometimes plays with me and with my original stuff, although that's become a bit on the back burner because I generally play guitar now when we do the live thing. Brent does Martin Gore as counterfeit Martin. And then James Evans in the back is Fletch, and he's very good at doing Fletch. And then Christopher Olivas, of course, from Berlin, or X of Berlin, on drums.
Very good. Very good. Now, I'm a huge fan of Tribute X because you guys are having to work so doggone hard to win the audience because, people are paying money. They want to see something close, and there's not a lot of bands that are touring anymore. You guys did an incredible job. I want to pass on kudos to Brett. When you accompanied him on keys, was just the two of you on Home, that really was a home run for me because that's a deep cut. And I really and truly love that song and the way that you two just melded on that thing. Kudos to him and kudos to you on that song. Great job.
Thank you. He's a brilliant singer. He's a properly trained operatic tenor. So he's got the chops.
And he's got the hair too.
Sure.
Let's move back to Singularity here. Your next song I'm going to feature here is a remix of Living for Forever. What's the backstory on this remix?
So this year, I've given full rein to my back catalogue to a label that I'm working with called Harmony Records under David Chatfield, who is my sort of mentor would be a strange stretch to say, but we work very well together. And he wanted to take the songs that he felt that I had that were hits and remake them so he could make them into radio-friendly versions of the hits. So I just said to him, take any song you want. Let's do a greatest hits album remixed by David Chatfield. And so that's what we're doing. And this Living for Forever is the first one. Mm-hmm. Well, he did the original with End of the Line, actually. So, but that was a way back before Elysium came out. And so we put Living for Forever and his remix of End of the Line is this first release. Then we're going to do a next month is going to be another song. And then the month after that's another song. And they're all David Chatfield remixes. Awesome. He reimagines how they would be for radio.
Very good. Very good. We're going to feature that song right now. Living for Forever, Julian Shah-Taylor, The Singularity on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
Control my tongue. You make me come undone. I've got a million things to say. My words get lost along the way. I can't control my brain. I'm just dreaming through my days. I've got a million things to do. Instead, I fall in love with you. You kiss me and the world disintegrates, yeah. You kiss me and the world just falls apart. In you, I'm living for forever now. This time it's me and you. This is no hit and run. You make me come undone. You kiss me and the world disintegrates, yeah. You kiss me and the world just falls apart. In you, we're living for forever now. touch me and the world just falls apart. In you, we're living for forever now. In you, I see forever now. You and me forever now. Will you be mine forever now? Forever now. Forever now.
Great music right there from today's podcast guest, Julian Shah-Taylor. He is the Singularity. That song is Living for Forever. I saw on Bandcamp that you had an album strictly of covers called Something Borrowed. I played, I think, every single one of them. I absolutely fell in love with your take on all those songs, especially one of my personal favorites, the 1987 version of Lips Like Sugar by Echo and the Bunnymen. Why'd you decide to cover that particular song?
That's a good question. It's not my favorite Echo and the Bunnymen song. I love Echo and the Bunnymen. They were one of my favorite bands for a very long time back in the day. Mm-hmm. And Lips Like Sugar, it felt like that was a song that I could cover that would make sense, I guess. Make sense in the context of the song, in the context of the album. Because the album is obviously, most of them are quite significantly reimagined, aren't they? But that one isn't really. It's a very similar to the original. And it just felt like my voice is quite similar to Ian's. And the riffs, like the Echo and the Bunnymen is Ian and Will. Mm-hmm. The guitar riffs and Ian's vocal, right? And I mean, at that era, it was the drums and the bass too. But the signature things, I couldn't change the signatures of that song because it's such a, I don't know, it reminds me a bit of The Cure as well. Yeah. It sort of fit as well onto the record, because one of my favorite would probably have been With a Hip from the Heaven Up Here album, but nobody would know it.
Right.
Sometimes I shy away from songs that I would normally cover because nobody would know it and nobody would understand what it was.
Yeah. And
my tastes tend to turn towards the more weird,
the deeper cuts
side. The deeper cuts, the B-sides, stuff like that.
I would have gone with Killing Moon. That's my favorite of Echo and the Bunnymen.
Killing Moon is too broad. Too many people know that song. I mean, I love it and I've covered it. But I just haven't.
I used to play that when I was on the air a long time ago. Well, let's play that song out. Lips Like Sugar. This is the Julian Shah-Taylor take on it right here on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
She floats like a swan, grace on the water, lips like sugar, lips like sugar. Just when you think you've caught her, she glides across the water. She calls for you tonight to share the moonlight. You flow down a river, she'll ask and you'll give her lips like sugar, sugar kisses, lips like sugar, sugar kisses. What she knows, I know what she's thinking. Sugar kisses, sugar kisses. Just when you think she's yours, she's flown to other shores to laugh at how you break, melt into this lake. You'll flow down a river, she'll ask and you'll give her lips like sugar, sugar kisses, my mirror reflect what I am, a loser and a winner, the king of silence. And my Siamese twin, alone on the river, amazing river, amazing river, lips like sugar, sugar kisses, lips like sugar, sugar kisses, lips like sugar, sugar kisses, lips like sugar, sugar, sugar kisses.
Great song right there, Lips Like Sugar, done by Julian Shah-Taylor, originally done back in 1987 by Echo and the Bunnymen. Great song, love that song. I'm so glad we included it here on the podcast. I see Strange Love is actually doing dates through the end of June. Can you tell us about some upcoming dates here in the month of June and the rest of 2024? What you got on tap?
I'm sorry to say I'm really bad at keeping up with that stuff.
That's okay.
As I said, Counterfeit Martin Brent runs that side of things, so I just turn up.
There you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put all the information in the show notes, okay? So what we'll do is just go down to the show notes, look at there. Give us some of your social media that we can track you and the band and everything, Julian.
I think Instagram is _singularity_music. I think Facebook is the Singularity Music. I think the fun one that I don't really put much focus on is YouTube, which is the Singularity Band. It's not a band; it's just me. So I don't know why I called it that, but I think the Singularity Music was taken. I'll give you my link tree, and you can put that in the show
Very good.
notes
What I'll
too.
do, down in the show notes, anyone needs to everyone wants to follow him because his music is fabulous, okay? Just everything you've heard so far. I've got even more great music coming up in just a couple of minutes here, but his music is just so good. You definitely want to follow this guy. And if you ever get a chance to see Strange Love, the Depeche Mode Experience, or Electric Duke, you got to check it out. I don't care if it's within 200 miles of you. You got to check it out. It's definitely worth the trip. I really enjoyed it. The next thing I want to talk about, you did a great performance in Hobart when we saw you in February, but there are those times that things didn't go quite as planned. Our next feature is called Tales from the Road. Those are those infamous road stories where things didn't go as planned. You plug in and all of a sudden you blow the power and you're in the venue or something like that, or you get ready to play a song and you blow a string or something like that. Thoughts on that? Any thoughts come to mind as far as, and this doesn't have to be your current projects. It could be back from when you started. What would you say would be your tales from the road?
I've had plenty of misadventures. There's one that springs to mind, which is from my old band. I was in a very successful electroclash band back in London, and we were, headlining festivals and doing very, very well. I will not mention the name because I don't want to give him any publicity because it ended rather unfortunately. Okay. But I remember one show when we turned up. We were playing I believe it was in London. It may not have been in London, but it was a show in England somewhere. And our singer, the guy reason I don't wish to give them any more publicity, was he turned up and he was incredibly rude to everybody. He was grumpy because he was on some massive drugs come down, and he was incredibly rude to the band. He pushed people out of the way. He said, "No, you're not sound checking. We're the headliners. We're sound checking now." He was very rude to the sound engineer. Wow. And we did our sound check and everything got out of the way. And obviously the band that was supporting us played, and they got their set out of the way, and they were really good actually. And we got on stage. We were an electroclash band, which means there were tracks, synths, guitar amps, the whole kit and caboodle. Everything is very complicated on stage. And what had happened was the sound man had removed all the plugs to all the mics, to all the amplifiers, and jiggled around all the different cables. And so we went on and no sound, nothing happened. And our set was completely devastated because the guy had been such an asshole. Mm-hmm. So I think we deserved it. The only thing is that it reflected on me because it was my guitar that was unplugged and there was no sound coming out. So I'm a bit disappointed with that, but it was quite funny, really.
Very good.
I think it was the end of that show where I took the guitar I'd been using and I threw it at the singer.
Oh,
and I missed him, unfortunately, but it destroyed the guitar.
Oh,
that was the last show I did with them.
We recently celebrated Memorial Day, so we're going to close the show with another song from Elysium, a track called All Good Soldiers. This is a great track. What's the backstory on this?
So I was in a relationship with somebody who was polyamorous, and it was for all of us, the friends of hers that were not polyamorous, who were very disappointed by this realization. So we were all sort of marching along to her drum and being all very sort of like it was going to war or something. And I was disappointed and desperately in love and needed to write my feelings down, I guess. So it was a camaraderie for the other soldiers, I guess, if that makes sense.
Very good. Very good. And it is All Good Soldiers. It's from the album Elysium. If you're a voting member of the Grammys, go ahead. Mark that block right there. Plain and simple. It's just one of the best albums that you're going to hear. That song you heard earlier, End of the Line, one of my favorites for 2024. It's a great, great song. Great music from my guest today, Julian Shah-Taylor. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, man. I really, really, truly appreciate it.
Rick, really appreciate your time. And thank you for having me.
Good soldiers need something to believe in. We don't grow old, so won't let go of the feeling. I believe in truth, I'll march to the drum. All good soldiers know the shadows they are lighting. To win the war, the sacrifice they're making. I believe our love will win in the end. Without love, we are lost. In the dark, the serpent obscene, once more in the breach, with tongue, lips and teeth, we pull it apart. The truth will prevail in uniform song. We fight tooth and nail for your right to be wrong. If it's cruel to be kind, the difference you'll find in the war of the mind will tear you apart. You tear us apart.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.